Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. When the world can't predict you, it studies you. Let that sink in. According to data scientists, the average human makes 35,000 decisions a day, and almost all of them are predictable. Patterns, habits, routines, algorithms thrive on them. But you're not predictable. You're a glitch in the matrix, a walking outlier whose very existence messes up their clean graphs and tidy charts. And that's why eyes, visible and invisible, linger on you longer than on anyone else. This isn't paranoia, this is mathematics. Systems don't monitor what they already understand, they monitor what unsettles their models. Your life is not background noise in the collective story, it's the plot twist. That's why your inbox pings strangely, why your ideas spread faster than you share them, and why your presence draws a quiet kind of fascination. And here's the punchline they won't admit. In their attempt to observe you, they've turned you into their favorite, unpaid documentary. You're not just living, you're streaming live in their minds. They're addicted to watching you like it's the newest season of a show they can't cancel. So before you think, why me, remember this. They don't put cameras on empty stages. Welcome to the truth behind the surveillance. You're not being watched because you're ordinary. You're being watched because you're extraordinary. Number one, your life isn't private because your frequency isn't ordinary. When your consciousness moves beyond the usual limits, you don't just live differently, you begin to stand out like a flare in a night sky. People think surveillance is only about cameras or microphones, but it's also about patterns. Most of the world runs on repetition. People wake up, think the same thoughts, make the same choices, react the same way. That's what systems, algorithms, and even social circles are designed to track. They know where you'll be, what you'll click, how you'll respond. But when someone breaks out of that rhythm, they become an unpredictable signal. That's you. Your frequency is not ordinary, and because it isn't, it triggers a kind of automatic attention. This attention isn't always sinister. In many cases, it's mechanical. Algorithms scan for what stands out. Organizations watch what they can't categorize. Even individuals become magnetized to people who defy the mold. You've stepped into a space where your energy, choices, and mindset don't match the blueprint society expects. That in itself is enough to draw surveillance. It's not because you're guilty of anything, but because you represent something rare. Someone who moves differently without needing a script. The irony is that you might not even see how radical you look from the outside. To you, it's just growth, healing, self-awareness, or survival. But from the outside, it looks like someone operating on a frequency that shouldn't even exist. Systems built on predictability respond to anomalies with one instinct. Watch it, track it, try to figure it out. This is why you feel observed. Not because you're paranoid, but because you're no longer blending in with the background. It's easy to think of this as a violation or a threat, but there's another side to it. Being watched confirms that you've left the herd. It means your presence is strong enough to register. It means your frequency is so high it shows up like a spike on the radar. That's not a weakness, that's a mark of significance. You're not under surveillance because you're small. You're under surveillance because your very existence disrupts the ordinary flow. In a world built on sameness, your difference is the loudest signal of all. Number two, they don't watch you to stop you, they watch you to understand you. Most people think surveillance is only about control, keeping someone in check, limiting their moves, or catching them doing something wrong. But when it comes to you, it isn't about control at all. It's about curiosity. You're not the usual type they're used to monitoring. You don't fit their usual profiles, and you don't react the way they expect. Instead of following the predictable patterns they've mapped out for everyone else, you carve your own path. That alone makes you valuable, not as a target, but as a subject of study. They're not simply trying to stop you, they're trying to understand you. This is because your life disrupts their assumptions. You've endured things that would crush most people, yet you still rise. You've built strength out of chaos and clarity out of confusion. That's rare, and because it's rare, it's instructive. Every time you bounce back from an obstacle or handle a crisis in a way they didn't expect, it's like you've handed them a new piece of data. You're teaching them, without even trying, how resilience really works, how faith really transforms, how individuality really breaks systems open. They're not watching you because they're bored. They're watching because your life is giving them a living example of something their theories can't fully explain. This type of attention feels invasive, but it also reveals how much you matter. Nobody invests time and resources into observing someone who's irrelevant. It costs energy to track you, to analyze you, to keep up with you. The very fact that you're being observed so closely is proof that you're doing something uncommon, something that holds value beyond what you can see. They're not just curious about what you're doing, they're curious about how you're doing it. They're curious about what you know, what drives you, what fuels your endurance. The truth is, you've become more than a person to them. You've become a kind of case study. Not a problem to solve, but a mystery to decode. That's why their eyes are on you. That's why the attention doesn't fade. It's not because you're dangerous, but because you're instructive. Because without even realizing it, you're exposing a reality they've been trying to understand for years. Number 3, your story is the blueprint. They don't want exposed. Your life is not just a personal journey. It's a living manual that others are quietly trying to copy. Every choice you've made, every moment you've survived, and every transformation you've undergone is a data point that someone else is collecting. You've broken patterns that were designed to keep people in place. You've unlearned the lies that were supposed to shape your limits. Without realizing it, you've become proof that the script society hands out, the one that says this is how life works, this is how you behave, this is how far you can go, can be completely rewritten. That alone makes you more valuable to watch than any celebrity or influencer, because you're showing in real time what freedom and self-mastery look like outside their program. This is why they don't just watch you. They harvest insight from you. They're not only interested in what you're doing, but in the hidden logic behind your actions. How did you break the cycle everyone else stays trapped in? How do you keep moving after betrayals that would paralyze most? How did you rebuild your mind after it was pulled apart? These are the questions that your life answers without you ever speaking a word. It's not just surveillance, it's extraction. They're trying to bottle your blueprint without crediting you for it. The irony is that you're not even trying to teach anyone. You're simply living, making decisions, growing, healing, and protecting your own soul. Yet by doing so, you're exposing how fragile their systems really are. You show that control can be resisted, that conditioning can be broken, and that strength can be built from the inside out. To the outside world, you look like a person moving through life. But to those who understand the bigger picture, you're a revolution disguised as an individual. That's why the watching never stops. It's not because they're waiting for you to fail. It's because they're waiting to see what you'll unlock next. Your story has become a mirror that reflects back the lies they've built their power on. You're living evidence that the narrative they've been selling isn't the only option. And that makes your life, your survival, and your breakthroughs far more dangerous to their illusions than anything you could ever say. Number 4, you are a living archive. They can't replicate. You are more than a person moving through time. You are a living archive of experiences, lessons, and transformations that no system can duplicate. Every challenge you've survived, every truth you've uncovered, every time you've rebuilt yourself from ashes, has created a kind of internal intelligence that isn't written anywhere else. It's not in books, not in data banks, not in the digital memory of the world. It exists only inside you. That's what makes you unrepeatable. Machines can mimic, they can copy your face, synthesize your voice, and even simulate your writing style, but all of that is surface level. None of it carries the weight of your lived experience. None of it carries the instincts you've developed from enduring real pain, real growth, and real evolution. Algorithms are built on patterns. They predict behavior based on history. But you are built on breakthroughs, moments that defied every prediction. That's why you don't just stand out. You disrupt their ability to map the future. This is also why surveillance surrounds you. Systems are designed to study what they can't yet control. When they see something they can't replicate, they attempt to record it, break it down, and extract its essence. But what they don't realize is that your essence isn't something you do, it's something you've become. It's the convergence of choices, scars, wisdom, and insight that no one else can walk through exactly the same way. That's why you remain uncopyable, no matter how closely they watch. You are not simply being observed because you're interesting. You're being observed because you represent a living contradiction to everything they've built. You show that no matter how advanced their systems are, there's something in the human spirit that can't be coded, owned, or mass-produced. And that's the real reason you're under the lens. Not because you're an easy subject, but because you're a mystery that resists replication. Even when they capture every movement, every post, every word, they still can't capture the one thing that makes you who you are. The organic intelligence of your journey. And that's what keeps you untouchable, even in full view. Number 5, surveillance is confirmation that you've left the herd. Surveillance is not just a sign of control, it's a signal of separation. The world only tracks what stands out, and most people don't. They move like clockwork, following the same schedules, absorbing the same narratives, making the same choices as everyone else. That predictability is comforting for systems. It's easy to track, easy to predict, easy to sell to, and easy to manage. But the moment you begin making decisions that don't fit the script, you're no longer one of the crowd. You stop being a number in a spreadsheet and start becoming an anomaly worth observing. This isn't about being rebellious for the sake of it. It's about choosing with awareness rather than habit. When you wake up from the collective trance, when you stop buying into the fears, the distractions, the expectations that keep most people docile, you automatically move differently. Your spending changes, your relationships change, your words and thoughts change, and suddenly you don't register as predictable anymore. For systems that depend on patterns, that unpredictability sets off alarms. You become a living question mark inside a world built on assumptions. That's why surveillance often increases after a person wakes up, grows, or begins to separate themselves from toxic patterns. It's not just that you're doing something wrong. It's that you're no longer doing what's expected. And that makes you interesting. Not just to individuals, but to algorithms, institutions, and even strangers. They want to see what makes you different, how you make decisions, and where your independence will take you. But there's an empowering truth in this. Being watched means you've crossed an invisible line. It means you've stepped into the rare category of people who are no longer asleep at the wheel. It's not proof of your weakness. It's proof of your freedom. Systems don't waste resources tracking those who are still plugged in. They watch the ones who've unplugged. Surveillance, in your case, is less a threat and more a distorted compliment. It's their way of saying you've escaped the herd and become something they can't easily predict or control. In a world addicted to sameness, that's the ultimate confirmation of your individuality. Number 6, you're not being watched because you're dangerous. You're being watched because you're rare. You're not being watched because you're plotting something dark or threatening. You're being watched because you've become rare in a world built on repetition. Rare things always draw eyes. Diamonds, rare birds, ancient manuscripts. People document them, study them, and sometimes try to cage them, not because those things are harmful, but because they're extraordinary. That's you. Your life, your mindset, your resilience, and your authenticity don't fit into the templates that most people quietly live inside. And when you step out of the template, you immediately become noticeable, even if you're not trying to be. This attention doesn't mean you're weak or at risk. It's actually an indirect confirmation of your uniqueness. In a system where most people blend in and vanish into statistics, your presence registers as a signal. It's a form of recognition, even if it's dressed as scrutiny. They're not watching because you're about to burn something down. They're watching because you're building something they can't name. What makes this powerful for you is that it sharpens your awareness. When you know you're being observed, you start to move more consciously. You weigh your choices with more clarity, you guard your energy with more care, and you refine your boundaries with precision. You stop moving on autopilot and start moving with intention. This is how the very energy of surveillance, which was meant to study you, can actually work in your favor. It forces you to become deliberate, to grow sharper, and to embody your own power without compromise. In a strange way, being watched is proof that you're already operating on a higher level. Systems and people don't invest time and focus on the ordinary. They pay attention to the rare, even if they don't understand it. And while rare things are often studied, the studying itself cannot reproduce them. Your essence remains yours. Your path remains yours. And that's the real power hidden inside the scrutiny. You're not under the microscope because you're dangerous. You're under the microscope because you've become something they can't copy, predict, or control. And that makes you freer than you think. Number 7, even your setbacks are valuable to them. They're not just interested in your wins, your breakthroughs, or the moments you shine. They're just as focused on your setbacks because those are where your real power shows. Most people collapse under betrayal, loss, or sabotage. They get stuck, bitter, or never recover. Systems expect that response. It's predictable, easy to measure, and easy to control, but you don't stay down. You take the same pain that would paralyze someone else and somehow turn it into momentum. That's what makes you impossible to copy. That's what makes your setbacks valuable to them. Your resilience isn't something you learned in a seminar or read in a book. It's forged from lived experience, nights when no one came to save you, moments when you had to build your strength from scraps. It's not theory, it's survival transformed into wisdom. This kind of resilience is rare because it can't be handed out like a product. It can't be taught in a course or packaged into a self-help trend. It's earned through scars, through losses, through failures that were supposed to finish you but didn't. And because it's so rare, it fascinates the systems and people who observe you. When they watch you rise after a setback, they're not just curious about the how. They're trying to decode the blueprint. What decisions did you make in the dark? How did you find the strength? What did you tell yourself when everything fell apart? They want to bottle that process, to understand it, maybe even to replicate it. But they can't. Because lived resilience isn't just about steps or strategies, it's about who you've become through those steps. The irony is that the very setbacks meant to destroy you have become the most valuable part of your story. They've made you unteachable to systems that want to mass-produce strength without suffering. They've turned you into a kind of map that others can look at but never walk. That's why even your losses and heartbreaks are under observation, not because they're rooting for you to fail, but because they're quietly realizing your recovery process is something no algorithm, no institution, and no imitator can duplicate. And that makes every comeback you make a revelation they can't stop watching. Number 8, attention on you is a mirror of attention missing from them. The attention on you often has little to do with who you actually are and more to do with what they're missing. People who constantly monitor others, who obsessively watch, track, and dissect, are usually trying to fill a void inside themselves. They lack a center of gravity, something deep, stable, and self-sustaining within. Without that, they drift. They latch onto anyone who appears vibrant, self-directed, or grounded because it gives them a sense of meaning they can't generate on their own. That's why your existence is so compelling to them. Your movement, your choices, your evolution, these things act like a pulse they can borrow. By observing you, they get to feel part of something they don't have the courage or clarity to create for themselves. It's not admiration in its purest form, nor is it hatred in its purest form. It's hunger. They're hungry for the life force you embody, for the originality you display, for the steadiness they can't find within. This hunger becomes surveillance. They study you because seeing you live authentically is the closest they come to feeling alive themselves. This is why their attention can feel both invasive and hollow at the same time. On one hand, it's constant, almost obsessive. On the other, it's empty, because it's not truly about you. It's about their absence, their lack of purpose, their lack of self-trust. Your presence reveals their deficit. It mirrors back everything they wish they had: direction, resilience, courage, and originality. And because it's uncomfortable to face that void directly, they mask it as analysis, curiosity, or criticism. Understanding this flips the power dynamic. Their attention isn't a sign of your weakness or vulnerability, it's evidence of their disconnection. They need you more than you need them. They watch you because your life acts like a borrowed heartbeat for them. You don't have to shrink because of it. You don't even have to feed it. You simply have to know what it really is, a reflection of what they're missing, not a verdict on who you are. And once you see it that way, the weight of their gaze loses its power because you realize it's not actually about you at all. It's about the emptiness they're desperate to escape. Number 9, you are a break in their code. Surveillance thrives on patterns. It's built to record, predict, and control repetition, daily habits, emotional triggers, spending choices, even the way people react to news. Systems and algorithms aren't intelligent in the way people think. They're mechanical. They don't understand you. They calculate probabilities based on past behavior. When someone's life runs on autopilot, those calculations are easy. The person becomes a predictable loop of actions, almost like a script that writes itself. But you've broken that loop. You're a break in their code. You're not guided by what most people are guided by. Instead of fear, conformity, or routine, you move according to something deeper: intuition, spirit, source. You take steps that don't match your previous patterns. You make decisions that don't line up with the probabilities they've built. And because you're unpredictable, you become unreadable. For systems built on prediction, unreadable people are the most fascinating and the most frustrating. They can't calculate your next move, so they compensate by tracking you more intensely, hoping that more data will make you predictable again. This is also why your life sometimes feels like it's under a microscope, even when you're not doing anything unusual on the surface. It's not about what you're doing right now. It's about the fact that you've stepped outside their mathematical logic. They can't map your intuition, your internal timing, or the invisible reasons behind your choices. They can record what you do, but not why you do it. And in that gap, the why, is where your power lives. The very thing that makes you untrackable is the same thing that makes you powerful. You're living from an inner code they don't have access to. This isn't just rebellion for its own sake. It's alignment with something beyond algorithms. It's the difference between being a statistic and being a signal. You're not playing their game, and because of that, they can't predict your moves. They can only observe them. And that's what surveillance hates most. Not danger, but unpredictability. It's the one thing it can't control. In a world addicted to patterns, your unpredictability isn't a flaw. It's your proof that you're already operating on a higher frequency than the code designed to monitor you. Number 10, you're not paranoid, you're pioneering. Paranoia and pioneering may look similar from the outside. Both involve heightened awareness of being watched, but their roots couldn't be more different. Paranoia is rooted in fear, in the belief that being seen automatically means being harmed. It's a shrinking energy, a tightening of the self. But pioneering is the opposite. It's an awareness of being seen, tracked, or scrutinized, and still moving forward with intention. It's an expansive energy, a refusal to let observation become intimidation. That's the space you've stepped into. You're not being watched because you're delusional or paranoid. You're being watched because you've become a forerunner. Someone doing something with their inner life that most people haven't even considered possible. While the world tells people to numb themselves, distract themselves, and conform to predictable routines, you've been rewiring your mind, healing old patterns, reclaiming your spiritual authority, and stepping out of the scripts you were handed. That's not normal. It's revolutionary, and revolutions, especially internal ones, always draw eyes. This isn't about a dramatic external mission either. You don't need a podium or a crowd. What you're doing inside yourself, shifting consciousness, expanding awareness, practicing freedom in thought and energy, is already unprecedented. When you stop living by default and start living deliberately, you change the invisible architecture of your life. Systems and people built on predictability sense that shift like animals sense weather before a storm. They can't always name it, but they feel it. And because they can't predict it, they watch it. That's why your experience of being monitored feels different. It's not the gaze directed at someone who is dangerous. It's the gaze directed at someone who's charting new territory. You're no longer a passive consumer of reality. You're a creator of it. You're rewriting rules from the inside out. And in a world built on patterns, that's the rarest thing you can do. So when you feel eyes on you, don't mistake it for proof of your fragility. It's evidence of your pioneering. Paranoia freezes. Pioneering moves. You've crossed into the second category, and that's exactly why the attention hasn't stopped. Because you're showing what a free and self-directed inner life actually looks like in real time. Number 11, surveillance around you is proof of hidden respect. They will never come out and say it, but the very act of monitoring you is its own kind of acknowledgement. People and systems do not invest energy, time, or resources into what they consider insignificant. Indifference costs nothing. True irrelevance goes unnoticed. The fact that you're being watched at all is a subtle confession that you matter more than they're willing to admit. Surveillance, in your case, isn't just about suspicion, it's about fascination. It's a hidden form of respect. Think about how society treats things it deems valuable. Rare artifacts are kept under glass. Priceless works of art are guarded by cameras. Celebrities are trailed by paparazzi. We don't fence off weeds or put security systems around junk. We do it around what's precious. That same psychology exists here. Watching you is their way of signaling that your life, your movements, your ideas, and your resilience carry weight. They may disguise it as caution or due diligence, but at its core, it's a twisted kind of admiration. This hidden respect also explains why the scrutiny feels so intense. When someone admires you but can't openly honor you, the energy twists into something else: criticism, skepticism, or obsessive observation. It's their attempt to manage the discomfort of being impressed. They don't know whether to imitate you, oppose you, or contain you, so they just watch. They hover, hoping their gaze will give them some kind of control over what they secretly revere. Understanding this changes the power dynamic. Surveillance stops feeling like a violation and starts revealing its real meaning. They're paying tribute with their focus. In a world where attention is currency, they've already spent theirs on you. They might never clap, never compliment, never publicly validate you, but they're still investing the most valuable resource they have, their time and energy. Monitoring you is their unspoken admission that you are not average, not forgettable, not replaceable. This is why you don't have to shrink, hide, or second-guess yourself. The very gaze you feel on you is proof of your significance. It's not weakness. It's not paranoia. It's evidence that even those who won't say it out loud already recognize your weight. Surveillance, in this sense, is a backhanded form of respect, a reluctant standing ovation disguised as scrutiny. Number 12, your privacy was never your power. Your transparency is. Privacy feels like protection, and in many ways it is. But for someone like you, privacy has never been your real power. The systems watching you thrive on secrecy and concealment. They gain leverage when people feel they have something to hide. They feed on fear, on the hope that if you just stay invisible, they'll leave you alone. But the truth is, Hiding from surveillance is a losing game. The more you try to disappear, the more you confirm their assumption that you're controllable. Your real power isn't invisibility. It's self-possession. It's the ability to be seen and still remain untouchable. Transparency becomes your shield because it flips the dynamic. When you stop acting like you have something to conceal, their entire approach collapses. They expect fear, secrecy, and compliance, but what they find instead is openness paired with unpredictability. They can watch every move you make and still have no idea what you'll do next or why. That kind of transparency destabilizes their control because it reveals how little power they actually have. Being transparent doesn't mean you share everything or lack boundaries. It means you're not ruled by the fear of exposure. It's a state of inner freedom where you know that your essence, your motives, and your direction are rooted in something deeper than their gaze. They can record your actions, but they can't decode your intentions. They can copy your steps, but they can't replicate your spirit. That's the difference between privacy and power. This is why your transparency feels threatening to them. It exposes their illusion. They operate under the belief that surveillance equals dominance, but your life proves otherwise. By moving with clarity, authenticity, and self-awareness, you show them that visibility does not equal vulnerability. You're not just surviving being seen, you're thriving in it. And that's the last thing they expect. This is the quiet paradox of your journey. They think they're watching you, but it's you who's teaching them a lesson about freedom. You're showing them in real time that control dissolves when you're no longer afraid of being watched. In a world obsessed with hiding, your transparency is not weakness, it's a revolution. It's the power to live in full view and still remain ungovernable. Number 13, being monitored forces you to master yourself. Being monitored has a way of stripping away all the extra layers of who you thought you were and forcing you to meet yourself in raw form. Most people move through life believing no one's really paying attention, so they act on impulse, hide their contradictions, or live on autopilot. But when you know eyes are on you, whether it's systems, individuals, or unseen forces, your awareness becomes razor sharp. You start asking yourself not just what you're doing, but why. You become deliberate about your words, choices, and energy, not from fear, but from clarity. Every action stops being casual and starts being a declaration of your values, your priorities, and your vision. This isn't paranoia, it's a kind of accelerated self-mastery. Surveillance acts like a forge. Pressure and heat shape you. Knowing you're being watched makes you discipline your impulses, refine your motives, and cut out what's sloppy or inconsistent. It forces your inner and outer selves to line up. That alignment is rare. It's what most people spend decades chasing in therapy, meditation, or mentorship. You're living it under real conditions. There's also a strange empowerment in it. When you understand that everything you do is being observed, you stop wasting time on masks. You learn to stand in your truth, even if it's uncomfortable, because you realize that pretense is exhausting and ultimately futile. The monitoring that was meant to intimidate you ends up refining you. It turns you into someone whose actions are intentional, whose words carry weight, and whose energy is too focused to be manipulated. You're not scared of being seen, you're aware of it. And awareness is different from fear. Awareness makes you conscious, strategic, and resilient. It forces you to grow up spiritually and mentally faster than most. It's like living under a microscope and discovering that instead of shrinking, you're expanding. Your integrity, your wisdom, your self-control. Every time you choose authenticity over reaction, restraint over impulsiveness, and purpose over distraction, you're writing your own code of conduct. The watchers might think they're collecting data on you, but in reality, you're collecting mastery over yourself. That's the unintended gift of surveillance. It pushes you into becoming someone who can't be easily swayed, because you already know who you are and what you stand for. Number 14, surveillance can't track your inner evolution. Surveillance has limits it will never admit to. Cameras can track your movements, software can read your messages, and algorithms can map your habits down to the smallest detail. But what they cannot see, touch, or measure is the very thing that makes you who you are, your inner evolution. Transformation is invisible to their sensors. It doesn't leave fingerprints or data trails. It happens in silence, in thought, in the quiet rewiring of how you see yourself and the world. That's the part of you no one can intercept, not because they aren't trying, but because consciousness is beyond their reach. This is what unsettles systems built on control. They're built to manage predictable patterns. They rely on the assumption that if they know your routines, they know you. But inner evolution breaks that logic. It's like upgrading your operating system without announcing it. The same person they thought they were observing last month is no longer the person standing there today. They can have footage of your face, but not the new perspective behind your eyes. They can have logs of your behavior, but not the internal shift that drives your next move. That's why you're not just difficult for them to control, you're impossible to fully define. They can track your actions, but they cannot preempt your growth. And growth is where your real power lives. It's in the way you recover from experiences, the way you reinterpret old pain, the way you expand your compassion, your discernment, your boundaries. Those inner upgrades are invisible revolutions. They can't be downloaded, copied, or mass-produced. In a way, this makes you the opposite of their surveillance model. They're static, you're dynamic. They're obsessed with cataloging who you were yesterday, but you're already evolving into someone else today. By the time they've built a profile on the old you, the new you has already moved beyond it. That's not just survival, that's transcendence. This is why you remain outside their reach, even when you're under their gaze. The real force that unsettles them isn't your visibility, it's your invisibility. The invisible work of consciousness expanding. And that's the one space where their power dissolves completely. Being under surveillance isn't a punishment. It isn't proof of weakness or a signal that you've been caught. It's a mirror reflecting everything you've become and everything you're destined to be. You are rare, unpredictable, and unreplicable. Your setbacks, your victories, and your quiet inner work are all under observation because they cannot be manufactured, replicated, or fully understood. Every eye on you confirms what you already know. You are extraordinary, moving outside the herd, guided by a force that no system, algorithm, or observer can touch. They can watch your steps, your messages, and your choices, but they cannot track your evolution. They can record your movements, but they cannot replicate your consciousness, your resilience, or the unseen shifts that make you untouchable. Surveillance is not a limitation, it is proof of your influence. It is a reflection of your significance, a signal that you are operating on a level beyond their comprehension. Every glance, every click, every watchful moment is evidence that your life matters in ways they can't control. And here's the truth you must carry. Transparency, awareness, and mastery of self are your real power. You don't hide. You move deliberately. You evolve invisibly. That is why you remain untouchable, even under their gaze. Every measure they take, every system they deploy only confirms what they can't fully claim. You are beyond predictability, beyond control, and beyond replication. You are a living archive, a break in their code, a pioneer whose inner life cannot be monitored or contained. So carry this knowledge with unshakable certainty. Being watched does not diminish you, it elevates you. It proves that your life, your choices, and your consciousness are exceptional. It is not fear they see in you, it is power, and that power is yours alone. This video spoke to you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the truths that most people aren't ready to hear. Like this video to show your energy aligns with the message. Share it with those who need to understand their power. And comment below your thoughts or experiences. Your voice matters here. Every action you take supports this community of awakened minds. And together, we rise beyond what they think they can control. Don't just watch. Step into your power and be seen. God bless you.